Yep, ready.
Okay. I now have to acknowledge that it's okay to record me, apparently. Okay, I'll call the meeting, this is what, September meeting of the Richmond Amateur Radio Club to order. And welcome to everybody. Everybody, I think, has their name and call signups. I don't guess we need to go around and do introductions. So let's go ahead and get the minutes approved. Minutes are in the newsletter. Has everybody had a chance to read them? Does anybody have any comments? No complaints, no additions, and I'll ask for a motion to approve them.
Motion to
Make a motion
approve.
approve.
Okay,
Second.
anybody say- All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Ken, I just caught the admit for you, so go ahead and do your treasurer's report.
Treasurer's report. We started the month with $15,750.72. We had some equipment sale for $640, and the school took in $60. So we're all set there. $700 came in, and the only expense we had was the excuse me, the storage garage for $46. So we ended at $16,404.72. And I have one new member, a Kenny Silverman, who's an extra, K2 KW.
Okay. Do we have a motion to tell us a little bit? We have, excuse me, any background for him to?
He lives in the state. How's that? That's good news. In
Yeah.
Colleton.
I guess that's all we need to know. So
And I
somebody make a
agree,
motion
too.
to accept him.
He's interested in CW, contesting and antennas.
Okay. Somebody
Okay.
want to nominate him here?
Motion to accept.
Okay. Is anybody second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And thumbs up.
He's
Thank
not
you,
with us
guys.
tonight, is he?
Yeah,
He is? Okay.
I'm here.
Congratulations. You are now a member.
Woohoo!
Welcome to the club.
Bad news.
All right, let's see what else we got tonight on the, is Mac here to talk about nominations?
I did not see Matt come in, but then I missed a few. So I'll look real quick. No, he's not here.
Well, anybody want to, Ken, can you bring us to nominations?
The nominations, from what I understand, is everybody who's currently a officer is running again to be an officer. The president is,
Correct.
is John again. Alan is the vice president again. David Robinson is the secretary again. I'm the treasurer again. And the two,
Robin and I.
Robin and Joey Harefield are the other two. Those are the elected directors.
Okay, well, this is all, of course, subject to election. So we have to say that if anybody wants to run for one of these positions as a write-in, I think you do have the ability to do that.
You have the ability, but it's got to be told to us tonight.
Okay.
So if anybody even thinks they're gonna want to, before we end tonight, you have to say, I'd like to run for and state a position. There is one thing that I was sort of asked is, what are the duties of the officers of the club? The elected directors, I would say, basically serve on the board and participate in the board's decisions that affect the direction of the club. No special prerequisites or anything of that nature. President generally creates or schedules, maybe is a better word, the programs that we have every month. Vice President is hoping John or the president never misses a meeting, because then they have to take over. Treasurer keeps track of all the money. Secretary takes notes for all the minutes of the meetings. That's it. Me.
John, you're muted. John, you're muted.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I don't know how that could happen. Anyway, if anybody does want to, go ahead and try to run for one of these positions, you can, there's no reason why you can't do it. The club doesn't prevent you from doing it. So just because we have a nominated slate of offices, there are nominations from the floor here. So again, if you want to do it tonight. Otherwise, it times out on you. Okay, so that's our nominations. We wanted to mention, is Wynn here tonight? Wynn, are you here with us? I don't see Wynn. The D-Star repeater computer had to be replaced this past month. We had, what was it, Ken, an $1,100 purchase of a new computer for that?
Something like that. I have the bill and I need to send him a check. So,
Okay.
So they have the equipment. I don't know if it's been reinstalled completely yet or not.
Yes, it has.
It
Yep.
has.
Yeah, and it seemed to work pretty well Wednesday night for the net.
Okay, good.
Good. Well, just that everyone knows that the club is keeping up with our equipment, even though, we're all the situations going on in the world today. We've replaced a bad switch in the club station, the remote station. We've replaced the computer in the D-Star station when it went bad. So, we are keeping up with equipment. There's no question that money's being spent in the right places. Okay, Bruce, you have an announcement for us, don't you?
Yeah, and I want to share this with you, but I seem to be having problems with the upload. I did a measurement here. We have like a 35 megabit download, but only about a 3 to 10 megabit upload. So sometimes I notice my face is not moving, and you may notice the same thing. So I will try a share and see if you can take a look at it. This is about the space station contact for the Hopewell Middle School. I've mentioned that to you earlier in the summer. They had been allowed, they've been approved for the nomination for the, I'm sorry, they've been approved to do a space station contact next spring, and asked the Richmond Amateur Radio Club to be their supporting radio club. It's an amateur radio connection to the space station, so you have to have a club or some hams backing you up. We agreed to it. And last night we had, late this afternoon, we had a meeting with our two ARIS, this ARISS, ARIS mentors, the educational mentor and the ham radio mentor, and the teacher. So we kind of ironed out the last of the calculation of the information, and we have some. And some of you had said, when you know what you need, let us know and we'll tell you about it. So let me see if you can see this.
We see a black screen. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, we're seeing it.
Okay, so this is, let me get it back where it needs to be. Well, great. Let's see if I can do this again and make it work right. All right. I'm going to go ahead and show you this. It's not acting the way it ought to. Let's see, back here. Okay. So I'll tell you the first slide because I can't show it to you at this point for some reason. We are going to have a series of labs and classes which hams will lead. We're going to do the beginnings of communications is we're basically going to modulate a string. In other words, we're going to take cans, okay, with strings on them, and the kids are going to learn to talk back and forth. And they always have great fun with that. Then what you do is you make them close their eyes and tell them why they have to use the word over, because of course you can't see. And we can talk about transmitter versus receive. That whole process comes through when you do the cans like that. We're going to get some HTs, and that's part of the list I've got of things I need from you all. And the kids are going to learn to talk on HTs, to do a controlled net, to ask permission to do stuff. I wish I could find the other part of this thing with me.
Bruce, if I'm not mistaken, there's a whole bunch of HTs, brand new ones in the storage locker.
Yes, sir. Okay, that'll take care of that. We have, I'm trying to do this from memory because I can't get the screen up. We're going to do, there's like 4 things we're going to do before the session. The session is predicted to be the week of the 21st of February. So that's what we're scheduled for. And we're trying to make sure the outdoor stuff is done before the weather gets really cold. Oh, we're going to be doing code practice, doing Morse code. Kids love to do Morse code. They like to send their names back and forth. So I'm going to need some code practice oscillators from some of you all. And if you don't have them, we're going to have to find a way to build them. And maybe I'll talk to the build group about doing that. Those are the major things we're going to do before. Oh, we're going to also build or acquire some 2-meter Yagis. A popular way of doing them is making them out of old metal rulers, tapes, hooked up on some PVC. And we're going to try tracking satellites with them. Specifically, what we want to do is pick up the NOAA satellites and let them, with a SDR receiver, let them see it paint the picture of the satellite view of the Earth and the weather systems. And one of our mentors said it's really great because the kids look at it and they say, "You're really doing that." So you aim the antenna away, and the picture goes away. They put it back on. The picture comes in again. So they begin to see some of that. So those are the basic things we're going to do before the space station contact in late February. Then afterwards, they said we should have some other things for the kids to do so it isn't a big letdown. So one of the things they suggested was to use DMR radios. So we're going to want to borrow some of those and let them do some DXing, basically. Realize that for most of us, that's not true DXing, but the thrill of talking to somebody in Israel or in Northern Ireland or something like that is great for the kids. And then we want to do a fox hunt. So I'm looking for anybody who has got a fox, knows how to do fox hunting. So basically, I'm looking for someone to, not only I'm looking for DMR HTs, but also someone who has a lot of experience with it to kind of help lead that process. I'm looking for some SDR receivers that we can use for downloading satellite stuff. Any 2-meter Yagis you have or old tape measures you have, code practice oscillators, some HTs. And the last thing I need, maybe it's the first thing, is any of you who are hams who live in Hopewell, Dinwiddie, or Prince George. We want these kids to see people who live near where they do. So if any of you live in that area, I'd like to know about it because we'd like to have you come at least once to one of those sessions so the kids get to see someone who's local. And you can do this by sending a note to Whiskey 4 Bravo Romeo Uniform at arrl.net. So we're looking at the first bunch of stuff before February and the second bunch of stuff when the weather warms up a little bit after February. Any questions? Okay, I expect to see those email notes coming into me like crazy to sign up to provide the stuff and provide the help. Anyway, it should be great fun for the kids, great fun for us. We've done one before. They are a lot of fun to do, and the kids really have a great time with it. It's quite a good send off for them. It's done by the science teachers. We'll be about 300 kids in total, so it's a good turnout. Any questions?
Bruce, what are you gonna do, like several days of this activity, or is it one day for several hours? How will it work?
It will be probably a couple of classes at a time in each one of those subjects. When I say a couple of classes, like a couple of class sessions. We got a bunch of stuff from NASA and also some stuff we'd come up with. And she's actually started some of it now. She's doing the one that NASA has some stuff on potential and kinetic energy. We'll be doing orbital mechanics, a lot of stuff like that. So I'm just focusing on the radio side of it and electronic side of it, but we're doing a bunch of other stuff as well, and that's already started. Hopewell is kind of interesting. They're a project-oriented teaching curriculum, so they have the kids have projects they work on, and they kind of learn the material from the projects. It's actually a rather new concept used by a few engineering schools, but it's pretty advanced. It doesn't have a whole lot of memorization. You work on a project and see what you learn from it. Anything else?
Sounds fabulous.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great fun. And they're very enthusiastic. Hopewell is interesting. It's 20,000 people, one middle school, one high school. I think it's 2 or 3 elementary schools, and not a lot of politics. They kind of get together, figure out what they're going to do. They don't politic the hell out of it. They just go out and do it. And I think it's going to be fun to work with that attitude.
I think we need a cross-sectional participation from this club too. I mean, a lot of us are, myself included, old men, and these kids are going to be able to identify better with younger people, with ladies, and so everybody who's available should get involved as far as having a presence with this.
Once we have laid out the timing, I'll pass that information on to you as well. But I want to get things that we need from you all so you can think about what we're going to have. We have to figure out what we have to get elsewhere versus what we can get locally. And then we'll go on to lay out the classes, and I'll be coming back to some of you for specific help on being part of the classes. Because a lot of it's lab stuff, it's hands-on stuff.
Okay. Any questions or anything for Bruce? Bruce, while you're on there, how's the club station? Is everything up to snuff on it now?
Use it Monday night, worked fine. I'm on vacation, so I'm not checking it every day. So
Yeah.
but it seems to be working okay. We occasionally have an outage. I haven't figured out the last couple of times it looked like remotehams.com was having a problem and not us. I'm not sure about that yet. It's, this is a long software string between you talking into your computer and clicking on that radio going out at the other end. But it looked like it was remote hams problem and not ours. So
Okay.
as long as that seems to be true, we'll kind of talk to them and see what we can do about it.
What about that noise problem that we're having the toroids take care of it? Or not the toroids, but the filters?
Yeah, we were having some outages. It looked like it was RF getting into the Ethernet cable, and we put the last toroids on it, and I haven't seen that problem. So the problem we've seen since, in fact, we put the toroids on, cranked it up, and it immediately failed. And that was a great feeling. And then we started tracing it down, and it looked like it was remotehams.com that was the problem. So, but it's worked since, so haven't heard any other complaints about it.
This is good. That's great. Okay, thank you. Want to mention too about the Elmering program again. We do have an Elmering program, and we're always looking for volunteers. Excuse me. There's not a lot going on right now, but we would like to have some people available if somebody needs some Elmering help. So if you're interested in being an Elmo on a very, it's going to be on a very limited basis for the time being, at least. So, throw your name in there, either let Bruce know or myself or Ken, so that we can call on you if somebody does need some help. Let's see, I wanted to mention ARL. I saw an article coming from ARL that they are now, I don't know if it's been approved or not, but their board recommended it, that they pay the cost of anybody's license fee who's under 18 years of age, the $35 license fee. So I think that's a good thing, and probably will help to get some young people in there, especially school kids that can't come up with $35 right off the top to get a license. So this is something good ARL's doing. Do we have any other reports tonight?
I have two things.
Go
One,
ahead.
Dwayne, I don't have a valid email address for you anymore. So if you could email me, that'd be great.
Anything else?
Oh, the other one was, we talked about it a little bit at the beginning. We're coming up with dues being due. And somebody said, I can't find it out on the website. And we've always not done that because of privacy for everybody. So my thought was to put your name, your call. I was going to put the level of license, doesn't have to be there. And I was actually going to put the year you're paid through. And the reason I was going to do that is if I put 21, that means you got to pay your dues because we're starting the 22 year. But somebody said to say that you're current, I'll have to stretch it and say you're not current if you're 21, since dues are due in November. So does anybody have a problem with us posting your name and your call sign out on the website so that you could check and verify if you need to pay dues, and if you don't, great. And if you do, please pay them. And it also will give you another way to check that I have received your money and posted it, and it's been changed. So is that acceptable to the membership?
And go to QRZ and find out all that information anyway, so except
Yeah.
whether you
Sounds
pay.
fun.
Well, yeah, as far as most, well, and you can find your address and everything else on the FCC website too. So
Yeah.
as I say, we did have one bad thing where we used to, back when Jim Bates was president, we posted a somewhat abbreviated roster out on Google. And it had your email addresses. And so somebody got very nasty and said, hey, John is stuck somewhere and he needs some money, so please go buy some gift cards and send them to me, to this address. And so we got a scammer use that information. So we have since removed that information from Google, but so I will post it out there. It'll have your name, as I say, your name, your call, and I put the call sign only so that you can maybe search by your call sign and get down to your, and it'll say you owe dues well, actually, I'll probably just not put you out there. If you've paid your dues, we just won't even put you out on the list. So this will just be a list of people who owe dues as we're coming here to November. So, and just so some of you know, we have people who pay ahead. We have somebody who's paid up through the year 23. So, and a few through 22, all of 22 already. So anyway, coming due. November 1st is when dues are due. So I'll try to get that out there tomorrow.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Does anybody have any other reports tonight, first of all?
Testing tomorrow.
Got testing tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay, well, regular place?
10 o'clock at the Bon Air Library.
Okay,
And then I'm doing a special session next month again at James River State Park. I think it's the 16th of October. And then the last regular session for the year will be at the library November the 13th. And
okay,
that'll wrap up 21.
that's good. That'll coincide with the ending of the fall class too. That'll work out well. Okay, thanks, Alan. Anybody else got anything? Okay,
Hey.
we have it. Go ahead. Somebody said something.
Ken, these us folks that are over 80, do we still have to drop you an email and say that we still want to be a member?
Yes. And the
Okay.
reason why, and just so everybody realizes, lifetime members, not several, but most don't attend meetings. And we have no contact with them. And if they don't respond and say, hey, I still want to be a member, we don't know. And the real reason is we don't know if they're dead or not, or if they've been put in a home and there you have dementia. So by forcing them to respond, what we're really saying is, do you really want to still be a member? You don't have to pay anything, but go through the process.
So is it too soon to drop that email to you?
No, it's
Okay.
fine.
Done.
Yeah. If you're over 80 now, we'll put it that way, then you don't have to pay dues for 22. And it's sort of because of our dues are due November of the year before. And the way we work it is you have to be 80 the year before. So if you turned 80 January 1st of 2022, you still have to pay your dues because the dues are due in
Well.
November and you're not 80 yet. So, and basically I give everybody the break, and I assume you were born January the 1st of the current year. You know,
Okay.
because all I have is the year you're born. So I assume the date is January 1st. So
Okay.
doesn't matter if
Thank
you were
you.
born in December of 2021. I assume you're already had your birthday.
Okay.
Thank you, Ken.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody got a show and tell for us? We haven't had one of those in a while.
I got one.
Go ahead.
So let me see if I can share my screen here. How do you do that? Yeah. Okay, share. Can everybody see this?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay, so I just got this it's the QCX Mini. Very nice little kit. You can hook it up to any paddle. They have that nice little palm paddle from Germany there. But I think, of course, it's if you're familiar with the QCX series, it's got all the bells and whistles and self-diagnostics, which are really nice. You can go in there and you don't need any test equipment to set the thing up and get it all dialed in. It's got, I've built almost every company that's come out with a kit. I've tried one or two of them, going back to Small Wonder Labs, and I don't do the things off of eBay that come from China, but QRP Labs, QRP guys. I like to build those, and this is some of the best instructions that I've seen. It really goes through it, but I think he tells you to save the pins here because you're going to need them, and that's one of the coolest things that he has done, is use parts of the PC board that he's getting when he makes the PC board. As you can see, it snaps out like your balsa wood airplane used to do, or your model parts. And you use all of these different little PCBs. You break them out and then you have to file them off and everything to make little sub-assemblies. They really go together. So neat. You can see it right there. Over here is, there's a special board that's a joint venture between the QRP lab Hans Summers and Ashar Farhan that does the BitX and a bunch of other guys to do this USDX project. And that'll turn your one band CW only into SSB. It's a little complex. You have to go in and unsolder some of the tiny capacitors and move them around on the main board, which are SMT. So that's a challenge. I have not done that part yet, but I was attracted to it for that reason. Anyway, just really comprehensive, great instructions. This one was a real booger to wind, but I got mine looking pretty close. And I mean, I fired it up and it worked. I haven't heard anything yet because I'm still working on the antenna. But anyway, if anybody wants to try one of these, I think it was extremely well done. I'll just kind of scroll on down here so you get the bird's eye view. And looking forward to getting on the air with it sometime soon. And I have, if you are familiar with the QRP guys, oh, I guess everybody doesn't need to see my email. There we go. Can you see that? Or did it change?
I can see something with four pictures.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Let's see here. Here we go.
Your screen share is off. There it goes. Okay.
Oh, okay. So if you're familiar with, again, QRP guys, they have an end fed half wave set up, a kit. And I just had already gone ahead and bought my own toroid and wire. And I got some neat Kevlar wire for the antenna. So I cut these out on my CNC the other day and put this together. So we'll see how that works. And I had to take down my vertical dipole, so I haven't been on the air since the beech tree came down, I'm sorry to say. Anyway, that's what I'm working on, and I should have that like ready to go tomorrow, I think. So if anybody wants to do a test with me, that would be great.
That little antenna should work pretty well, Rob, too, because it's very similar to the one that the ARL was selling. I built theirs, and it's I mean it's 1-to-1 on most of the bands.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't believe it, with the
Yeah.
20-meter wire. All right, I got a couple of things I can show tonight too. Like Rob, I don't generally buy Chinese equipment if I can help it, but Ken Zuderberg, it was a tavern, came up with a little amplifier a while back that he showed us at one of the makers group meetings. And it was a 70, well, he had a 100-watt amplifier. I went ahead and ordered one of the 70s, put it together very carefully and put it in an aluminum box with a heat sink, and it blew up when I tried to power it up. So I wrote to the local, not the local, but the United States distributor for the things and said, look, the insulators that you gave us with the transistors, with the MOSFETs, are not insulators, they conduct. And that's what ended up shorting the thing out. So they sent me a 100-watt version of the same amplifier already built that doesn't require an insulator because the MOSFET is at the same potential as ground. So I mounted it in a box, aluminum box, put a little fan in it just for grins. And I started using it with my UBitX6. Well, we found out through with the help of K4HM and one of his test instruments at the makers group that we had spurs on the thing. So I bought another board for it with filters, put it in. It's also in this box, and I can get 100 watts out of my BitX6 right now, Ubit X6. So
Crazy.
I recommend that anybody that doesn't, particularly in New Hams, that doesn't want to spend $1,000 on a ICOM 7300, you might want to look at this as a possibility, because for $300 you can have a nice 100-watt station. And I have one other thing too I can show you. This is not exactly high-tech stuff, but let's see if I can share my screen here. My grandchild. Hi, Juniper. That's my friends. That's right. And, all right, let's see if I can get this, what I'm trying to find here. I should have done this before I shared the screen. Let's see. Give me a second here. And here we go. Well, they will talk in a minute. They're talking on my earphone. That's why you can't hear them. Got my ham in the making there. Let's see if we can show this. Okay. Now, share screen. All right. This is not exactly high tech. This goes back to in an old book from one of the, I think it was Ardell or one of them, had a diagram for a shipboard crystal receiver with a
Wow.
anyway, I was able to by shopping on eBay for the last year, I was able to find a DeForest capacitor and another capacitor like this, a crystal, and the tuning coil. And so I went ahead and put this together. Anyway, it works. It's a crystal set and it does work. So
Crazy.
yeah, so it's now been added. I have the those of you who were with the thing we had at the train museum saw the spark transmitter that I had, the 250-watt spark transmitter. So this is the companion piece to it now in the collection. So that's my
Beautiful.
show and tell for the night.
It's nice.
Okay, so we get to our program. Anybody else have any business before we go to the program? Okay. What was
Hey, it's Mike. Can you hear me? It's
Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm out in a rural area working in the shop tonight, but yeah, I wanted to just mention to everyone, I'm a big Summits on the Air proponent and Parks on the Air, and we're going to have our second workshop. It's going to be in Stanton, Virginia on October 23rd. So I'll send you more information. Maybe you guys can put that in the newsletter for next month, but just
Okay.
wanted to let everyone know in case they had an interest. I know there was at least 1 or 2 people, and it's just what it sounds like. It's a workshop. So anything you want to learn about Summits on the Air, we get together, we talk about it, we demonstrate, and then we all go out and activate a summit. And anyone is welcome to go with someone who's geared up and ready to go. That was half the beauty of it. So you guys will see more information. Just want to mention it during the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mike. That's important.
Sounds great.
Also, too, remember that Virginia is full of parks. I mean, I have 4 parks within almost walking distance of my house, including Pocahontas. So I'm thinking it would be nice before the weather gets really bad to do a Parks on the Air from maybe Pocahontas. So if anybody's interested in working with that, I think
Yeah.
I have all the equipment we would need. Somebody interested in working with me to put it together. Let me
Hey,
know.
I'm going tomorrow, by the way.
Yeah.
I'll go with you to
Okay.
Pocahontas. Are you just asking for somebody to go with you to Pocahontas and activate?
Yeah, well, try to plan something for before the winter comes here. It's weather gets too bad.
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
I'll be in touch.
Good deal. Thank you. All right. Well, tonight our program is Mr. J.B. Edmonds, N4NQY, and he's going to talk to us about something that's really neat. Your own, I believe it's, well, he'll tell you about it. So, Mr. Edmonds, go ahead and take over.
Okay, fine, thank you. Good to see everybody, and Kenny's still here. Hello there. First time I've seen his face, but I've seen his efforts on some contests here, especially lately since he's moved, and I have relocated too. So thus my studio isn't all that great tonight, but we'll try to make things work here. Let's see. I'll share my screen here and start my slideshow. The presentation's on PI-Star Hotspots, which I sometimes call a ham's personal repeater. Just for those who don't know me, I'll give you a quick thumbnails. I'm an extra class. I was licensed in 1972, and I used to do CW. I'm not quite sure. I don't do much CW anymore. I have other interests, but I am a computer geek. I have a couple of computer science degrees, and I've taught computer courses at a lot of places. Professionally, I've been a programmer, systems engineer, network engineer, all the usual things you do in the IT arena before you retire. I'm currently semi-retired. I work in cellular, broadband, and public safety radio. Contester, I like gritty and digital contests. I like to do QRP with my Flex 1500. My favorite radio is my Flex 6300. I do have an Elecraft K3 because it's a real radio, I guess. And pretty much I have one of most of the digital radios and analog radios from everything from 2 meters up to 6 meters, really, up to 900 megahertz. What we want to talk about tonight, though, is what is a hotspot? A hotspot's a personal repeater. It connects to the internet. Lots of people, hams particularly, don't really care for the internet for doing contacts, but you know, everybody has their thing in ham radio. The typical hotspot consists of a Raspberry Pi of some type. Even the Pi Zero Ws will work very nicely. A low-powered transceiver board, or a couple of radios if you have them laying around. Some antennas, an operating system for the Raspberry Pi, Linux, obviously, in this particular case, and a collection of software packages. Typically, most hotspots run a package called PI-Star. We'll talk about that in a little more detail tonight and do some demos. The software controls the transceiver. It encodes and decodes the signals in and out of it, and it connects the hotspot to the internet. Here's a $36.50 eBay hotspot kit. There's no Pi included. You have to use your own Pi Zero, which will cost you an extra 15 bucks. If you want a fully assembled unit, about $69. Excuse me, yeah. You will have to solder in a couple of headers and the antenna connector, typically on the low end hotspots. Depends on how much soldering you want to do or whether you want to pay a little bit more and get a put together kit. Here's examples of some hotspots that I had laying around here. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but these guys here in the middle, the top one's a zoom spot, if you're familiar with any hotspots. The one below it is a predecessor to the zoom spot. I use these two in my automobiles. They happen to be my mobile radios, along with a handheld and those, and I can do pretty well connect to repeaters, 5-watt handheld, and a hotspot. I can do pretty well, do everything I want to do in an automobile anyway. It's an all-star node here on the left, middle left, and the ever-popular jumbo spot, which you saw an example of in the last slide, an eBay special, and a duplex hotspot that's more like a real repeater. It has input and output frequencies separate, and I just picked up a bunch that I had handy. This is my DMR hotspot here in the top middle, but I don't know how many I have, but I have a bunch. Definition-wise, we do need to at least to say a couple of things here. As far as the presentation is concerned, anytime I say repeater, reflector, talk group, or room, I'm talking about the same thing. In VHF terminology and digital terminology, they're all the same terms for the same room, depending on which manufacturer of equipment you have. The purpose of a hotspot, I'm going to sort of run through the first 10 or 15 slides for those people who are just not familiar with a hotspot at all. But if you fall asleep, we'll try to wake up before we get too far. The purpose of hotspots is allow a ham to connect to other hams, either across town, across the world, with a handheld, a mobile radio, a stationary radio. Provide 24-hour-a-day super repeater system that you control the node for. And take advantage of the internet to enhance ham radio. So why are usually hotspots on VHF or UHF? That's where the bandwidth is to use these devices, because there are thousands of them out there. And there's probably 1,000 in Richmond alone. And there's commercial radio equipment available for VHF and UHF, 900 megahertz or whatever. Some use cases here. Let's put some things in perspective before we actually talk about them. Brandmeister, which we'll talk about a little bit in a second, at any given time, it's a network. At any given time has over 4,500 repeaters connected to it, over 15,000 hotspots connected, and with its over 1,600 talk groups, many of them catering to special interest groups. There are talk groups for Aries, satellite, astronomy, Greek Americans, trucking, RV hams. If you're a full-time RVer and a ham, you're more than likely monitoring the Brandmeister talk group for that for the RV hams pretty much 24 hours a day. Technician class licensees have VHF and UHF privileges, so they can contact someone anywhere in the world 24 hours a day with very modest equipment without tying up a repeater and using IRLP or Echolink or something like that. Hams who find themselves on an HOA situation or living with relatives find that they can continue to enjoy the hobby with fairly modest equipment and no outdoor antennas. Excuse me. I myself recently moved to an HOA community with no outdoor antennas allowed. It's a little bit of a challenge. I think I'm going to overcome most of my issues with it. But with an HT and a hotspot and an internet connection, I can talk to all my friends who I have enjoyed in the past. And there's an abundance of digital ham radio networks and some analog ones too that provide region-wide networks that are accessible to any ham near a digital repeater or who has a hotspot, internet access, and wants to participate in MCOM, Skywarn, search and rescue, and things like that. When we talk about a ham radio repeater network, some examples that you may have heard of, many of you may have used or do use today, they're DMR oriented networks that link together DMR radio repeaters and hotspots. Some of the popular ones are listed there. They're fusion-oriented networks. WiresX rooms are not easily accessible with a hotspot. It's possible if you have some sort of bridge and someone in the greater Ethernet out there has created a bridge between WiresX and either a YSF or an FCS room. You can do WiresX on a hotspot too. It's just not as easy. Yaesu doesn't really like or cater to them very much, so it can be a challenge. And there's also P25 and NextGen oriented hotspots if you talk groups if you want to use those. All-Star is an analog-based repeater network. There's All-Star hubs nodes here in Richmond, Charlottesville, throughout the state, and that they work somewhat like IRLP and Echolink. In fact, Echolink and All-Star can coexist if you have a node, or and a node being another name for a hotspot in the All-Star arena. And there's some repeater-oriented networks. These tend to be more localized. A couple examples I just had. Virginia does DMR VA. It's a statewide network of 15 DMR repeaters. But they've just joined up with the HERES radio network, which has 8 Virginia repeaters and 15 North Carolina repeaters located in hospitals, primarily in Southwest Virginia, Central and Southwest Virginia. And so that's a fairly wide regional network of repeaters. DMR is used very heavily in the hospitals. So it's sort of normal to find hams use DMR repeaters for medical-oriented repeater systems, emergency services. Another one that comes to mind is Alabama Link. That's a statewide network that ties together RF repeaters, analog, D-Star, DMR, Fusion, P25, All-Star, and hotspots all together to give you pretty much statewide access, no matter what kind of radio you have. They're probably the premier guys in putting together these kinds of networks. Before we had hotspots, we could link things together. We had our RF links, we had telephone links, we had IRLP, Echolink, and All-Star. Each of them have some good points and bad points. Pretty much analog-based modes, and a lot of times, at least back before digital repeaters, they were linked pretty much with either RF or telephone lines. There's still a lot of microwave-linked repeaters out there, and the links do a very good job. There's nothing magically better about a digital link than an analog link particularly. It's just another way of doing it. Not every repeater had the capability to link in 10 or 15 years ago. Today, most of the repeaters that you find that have been put in place in the last 10 years or so can be made to link to other repeaters. And before we had hotspots, we had people who got on a repeater and tied them up for a long time with rag chew, which, you know, is okay, except there might be somebody else around who'd like to use it also. Excuse my voice here. But we wanted to talk tonight about PI-Star Hotspots. And so, just to give you a brief history, the first hotspots were the D-Star dongles, and some of you probably already have them. I know that RARC was somewhat of a pioneer in the D-Star arena, but the red D-Star dongles work very well. They're still used today, but they're D-Star only. A ham named Jonathan Naylor, G4 KLX, was given a D-Star radio in 2009, and he wrote an open source D-Star repeater as an alternative to ICOM's proprietary repeater system. And he's a contract programmer and works away from home a lot, so he has a lot of time on his hands. From about 2009 to 2014, he continued to develop the D-Star reflector system. He's credited with inventing it, in fact, and kept enhancing it. And in 2014, a company called Connect Systems gave him a DMR radio to play with, and he's added DMR to that D-Star modem software that he had. Along around 2015, the Pi-Hat came to be. The Pi-Hat is nothing more than a circuit board that plugs on top of a Raspberry Pi and allows you to have basically a transceiver. That's what makes up our hotspots today. These came from people like DV Mega, KI6ZUM, the Zoom Spot guy, and DF2ET, who developed the MMDVM-HS boards. So that was the beginnings of the modern day hotspots, if you will. In 2016, Fusion was added. 2017, P25 Phase 1 was added. 2018, NextDen was added. And in the 2017, 2018 era, when this was all being done, every ham who wanted to have a hotspot basically had to not only put the hardware together, they had to come up with a Linux package that included all the software that was needed to make the thing work. Wasn't easy to do. I got involved early on in the hotspot arena, and there was a lot of sharing of Pi images going on between those of us who were on the Yahoo groups at the time to find a working hotspot. So at the bottom of the slide, it tells you that today MMDVM supports DMR, Fusion, D-Star, NextDen, P25 FM, and POKSAG, which is paging. So you can take your pager and get to it from a hotspot if that's what you would like to do. I mentioned Brandmeister a little bit earlier. They were also a pioneer. In about 2018, they put together a network that allowed DMR repeaters basically to network themselves together to make one huge network. That created a big market for hotspots, along with the Chinese DMR radios, the MD380s, and those types of radios, the Radio Oddities GD77s. And so for roughly $150, you could get in business, but the problem was you had to know a lot about Linux to actually get it up and running. And when Brandmeister came along and you could link every repeater across the United States that wanted to participate, everybody wanted to have a hotspot, it seemed, and about 10% of the people who wanted one really had to know how the Linux background or whatever to create the software package that was necessary. And that opened the door for PI-Star, which is where we want to be at tonight to talk about. PI-Star was developed in England as a wrapper for the MMDVM software that Jonathan Naylor wrote, still writes and updates today. And the wrapper, in my definition anyway, it's a prepackaged collection of software that provides a user interface, a dashboard, and a configuration program for the software. And I'll show you those in a little bit, and we'll see what is going on in my particular arena here. PI-Star itself provides nothing but the basic programs and the user interface. PI-Star is basically a hotspot for dummies software distribution. It's locked down. You can't add your own programs to it, at least not very easily. I mean, a good Linux guru probably can do that. I'm only halfway a guru, and I might could do it if I struggle a little bit. But it's basically a hotspot for dummies situation. You download the image, put it on an SD card, plug it into the hotspot, turn it on, enter your call sign and what frequency you want to operate on, and you're in business. PI-Star is pretty much automatic. You leave it connected to the internet. It updates itself every night. It can be used also as a repeater controller. There are a lot of PI-Star repeaters around. The one DMR repeater in what was typically called the downtown DMR repeater, now located in Bon Air, has a homebrew repeater controller that only does DMR, but it uses that same software that we've talked about before because it does the linking very nicely. I showed you some turnkey hotspots you can purchase either from eBay, Ham Radio Outlet, Amazon, a number of other resellers. On Brandmeister alone, there are 20,000 PI-Star hotspots registered. They come in all shapes and sizes. You can get them from $40 to $240. They all work the same. The software PI-Star is PI-Star no matter what hotspot you stick it in. The hardware may vary a little bit. Some of them come in nicer cases than the others. Some of them you may think have better specs, but they all operate exactly the same. The $50 hotspot will work just as well as the $250 hotspot. There are open spots. That's a proprietary hotspot. It doesn't use PI-Star, but it does use most of G4KLX's software. It's pretty proprietary. Has some features that PI-Star does not, but you know, if that's what you need, it's pretty much a turnkey, pre-programmed everything hotspot, and are pretty popular. To get a hotspot going, you basically need to have this hardware and then download the software from PI-Star.uk, or many times the hotspots, if you buy them commercially from eBay even, they send you an SD card with a version of PI-Star already configured on it. There is some initial configuration you have to do. You have to put in your call, what modes you're going to operate with it. The mode depends on what kind of radios you have. If you have a DMR radio, obviously you're going to use DMR mode. If you have a fusion radio, you're going to use YSF mode. If you're going to use, if you have a D-Star radio, you use D-Star mode. You have to tell it which modem board is in your hotspot. Normally, if you buy one from eBay, they give you instructions. Says pick this one, and you're good to go. Normally, hotspots are simplex frequency use devices. 99% of them are on 440. So one thing to remember is stay out of the satellite portion of the band, and repeater output frequencies are always good to use. Then you have to pick a Brandmeister. If you're going to use DMR, you have to pick a Brandmeister master server. The 3101 one's located in New York and is good enough. There are 4 of them in the US. You can decide if you like another one better after you get a little bit of experience. You do have to set up a Brandmeister account before your hotspot can use the network, but that's just a matter of giving them your call and your DMR ID, which you do have to obtain for pretty much any digital radio use that you have. There's a lot of other configuration options, such as your GPS location, you know, things like that. You can usually enter those at your leisure. These particular small ones here, these particular ones are those you really do need to have. If you don't have a DMR ID, radioid.net, you can get one. The most common initial configuration issues, just sort of head off that sort of question that you're probably going to ask after tonight, even if you decide to get one or you've had in the past, is whether you like it or not, every radio is a little bit off frequency. And when you have a digital radio, the hotspot wants it to be on frequency. And the way you correct that is you can do it from the expert mode in the in the PI-Star software. You can change the transmit and offset frequency to so that it pulls the frequency of the radio into an acceptable range. Usually you set both of those to the same number or offset, but every radio is different. So if you're going to use 3 different radios with the hotspot, you might run into a little bit of problem. Let's do a little bit of a demo. I'm going to switch gears here. Let's see. Where's my? Here we go. Let's start over here. This is the dashboard for my DMR hotspot. And so this is part of what PI-Star gives you that the software that Jonathan Naylor wrote and distributes does not. It allows you to customize your and see pretty much how your particular hotspot's running. it tells you what modes you got running, in the case of DMR, what hotspots you're listening to, what frequency you're on, and in case you're cross-moding, what hotspot, what other network you may be connected to.
JB, we're still seeing your screen slides and not the dashboard.
Okay. Well, let's see why I'm not sharing this. Share it again and see if I can. Where are we at here? Okay, let's share a different screen. I'm a Mac guy, and sharing screens a little bit different. So sort of to back up a little bit, you find out something about the hardware here that the hotspot using. Again, what modes that you have turned on, what frequencies you're using, what networks you're connected to, what talk groups you're listening to. And here is the activity for the past, I don't know, for a few hours today anyway. A few calls in there I recognize. And you'll see that this is, I monitor Virginia statewide network, and that's what the 3151 talk group is. So you'll see most of these people are Virginians. Occasionally a guy will pop up from overseas who wants to talk to somebody who's stateside. This is the P25 dashboard. Very similar. Again, with my P25 radio set to. Those are the folks who are using the reflector hotspot talk group or whatever that I am connected to at the present time, at 10200, which is a nationwide hotspot frequency or talk group. And just for grins, this is my YSF one, which doesn't have much activity. And I have a D-Star one here if I could get to it. Here we go. And this is what's transpiring on Reflector 030 Charlie at the present time. If you work much D-Star, you're probably familiar with that particular talk group. But as I said, I usually have a hotspot for every mode that I have a radio for, and you know, a browser will get you to any of those kinds of modes that you would. I can monitor all four of them with one browser here. We'll go back to the DMR one for a second and show you the configuration page. Excuse me. This is the configuration page. It looks a little busy, but pretty much everything is already defaulted to things you might want to do. The mode here, I've selected DMR, and also DMR to YSF, which is a cross mode. I can use my DMR radio to get to Fusion to Fusion rooms if I'd like. And pretty much the next section is general information that gives you pretty much. Go ahead. And somebody had a question? It gives you pretty much, you set your own frequency. This is pretty much what you fill in when you start up PI-Star for the first time. Your call, your DMR ID. Like I said, if you're going to operate any digital mode, you need most of the time to have a DMR ID. The frequency for transmit and receive, this is a duplex hotspot, meaning that it has separate receive and transmit frequencies. So I have a repeater pair pick that's not in use locally. Latitude and longitude for where I live, and what type of modem that I have. And that's pretty much all you really have to put in configuration wise. There's an expert mode if you really need to get down into the weeds and configure the colors and configure the offsets and things like that. And you can back up and restore your configuration from the dashboard. You can update it manually if you like to update PI-Star manually. power it on and off. Do a factory reset if you really got it all messed up.
JB,
Yes,
do you have to have, like, if you want to do a P25, you got to have a P25 radio, DMR, you got to have a DMR radio, so forth?
generally, yes, that's true.
Okay.
To
So
talk
it
to
doesn't
the
do a
hotspot,
it doesn't do a translation across the modes.
yeah, it will do some translation. We'll talk about that in a
Okay.
couple of seconds here.
All right.
But I wanted to show you what the dashboard and the configuration options are. And you can see here that you can pretty well monitor your hotspot from a computer browser. Get back to the slideshow for a second. I sort of address some of Bruce's questions. Okay. All right. Bruce mentioned cross mode, so basically talked about what a cross mode was. Cross mode means you can use one radio mode to connect to someone else who's using a different mode. If I have a DMR radio, I can talk to someone who's using a fusion radio. I can talk to someone who is using a most any other kind of mode except D-Star is a problem. And we'll talk about that in a second here. So the PI-Star allows the following cross modes. The software supports DMR to YSF or Fusion, DMR to NextIn, DMR or YSF to DMR, YSF to P25, YSF to NextIn. And you can also cross mode any mode to any mode by using a reflector, either a Brandmeister reflector or one of the XLX or REF reflectors you're used to in D-Star. Two of them that support multiple modes is Alabama's link is reflector, and REF 054C, which is basically the Georgia super reflector. You can go into them on any mode and come out on any mode. It comes out on all modes, in other words. So if you're listening to it with a P25 radio, the person talking could be on DMR, they could be on D-Star, they could be on a NextIn radio. All of that translation of the pipes is done by a computer in the sky someplace. I particularly like Fusion, but it's because it's a little more versatile from some standpoints, but DMR is probably easier to use. The term multi-mode uses cross mode to give the user capability to access a room reflector from any mode that they have access to. Some examples here in the Alabama link, their hub, they have a Brandmeister talk group, they have a TGIF talk group, they have a C4FM YSF room, they have an FCS room, they have a WiresX room, they have multiple D-Star reflectors, a NextIn room, P25 room or talk group, an All-Star node, and an Echolink node. So if you have the capability to do any of those, you reach the Alabama Link network. You're tossed onto that 30-some repeaters that are linked across the state. I'll take a chance here in a second and show you some the Alabama Link dashboard. Why can we do cross mode? Why can we do DMR to Fusion? It turns out that all of the digital modes, with maybe the exception of D-Star, are very closely related to each other. DMR, Fusion, narrowband Fusion, and NextIn are pretty much identical as far as the data stream that moves across the networks. By moving the bits around in a data packet across the network, you can make Fusion look like DMR or make it look like NextIn. Same thing is true for Fusion wide 12.5 kC Fusion and P25 phase 1. There's nothing you need to do to talk Fusion wide to P25 except move a few bits around in the software a little bit. D-Star is a little older. It uses a totally different encoder, and everything today, the newer modes all use what's called an AMBI encoder. It's also possible to take analog voice and create data packets that look like they come from a DMR radio to send to somebody like Grandmeister. That's why you can basically do analog into most of the networks that we have today. You can do D-Star cross mode, but you have to have hardware to do it. And most hotspots will not come with the hardware needed to do cross modes or translation of D-Star on a network. What's next for MMDVM? Analog FM is pretty much done. In fact, I think it is done. M17 and Codec 2, the two newest modes hams have been playing with for a while. It's close to being added to the MMDVM software. DPMR, Digital Private Mobile Radio, is the ETSI standard version of FRS and GMRS. That's very popular in Europe. So it's likely to get done very quickly, very soon. But that's essentially the digital mode of FRS. Also Tetra. Tetra is a worldwide standard for public safety. P25 is a US born and bred mode. Everybody, well, I won't say everybody else in the world, but a large majority of everybody else uses Tetra, which is very similar to P25. I guess the US decided that they couldn't adopt something that other people had. But that's probably going to take place because of the availability of lots of Tetra equipment, especially in Europe. More cross modes, the ones that don't exist today, probably. P25 Phase 2 is on the drawing boards. An HF gateway can sort of be done today, but isn't practical probably. You could probably get to the Virginia sideband net from 2 meters if you wanted. It's just not practical to do probably. And in most cases, some of those that listed there are going to be repeater only. As far as PI-Star itself, DPMR is probably coming pretty quickly. There have already been enhancements to D-Star in the last month. Works much better these days, and so better included or integrated, I guess, into PI-Star. At some point, PI-Star is probably going to need heftier hardware. Most of the hotspots that people buy today are Pi 0W oriented, the low-end Raspberry Pis. Some of the newer modes and capabilities probably going to need more horsepower. For instance, most of the modems and hotspots software, the Pis and the modems that go on them, don't do a good job of running all the modes simultaneously. They probably choke with 2 or more. M17 and P25 Phase 2 would require a heck of a lot more horsepower than today's hotspots. And once analog gets folded in better, you probably can take a $12 to $25 Baofeng and operate any modes you wanted to.
Hey, so that is going to happen. They're going to eventually have it so analog users can have at it as well. I never knew that.
It will probably happen, but it will probably happen in the repeater rather than being a personal hotspot. Though some people will have their own personal repeaters. I want to go back to my let's see, my item here. This is the Alabama Link, the present Alabama Link dashboard for their D-Star reflector. So that's, they've got 25 nodes connected, but this is, this includes basically everybody who's connected to Alabama Link via D-Star at the moment. I don't, let's see if we can get any better information here. I think this is a list of all the reflectors, pure and simple here, the Alabama Link or not. Alabama Link's talk groups and Brandmeister and their D-Star reflectors and what the status of them are. They do a very good job of doing that cross mode. One of the things that you find most people who don't work with hotspots very often don't seem to get or to understand sometimes is when you look at these dashboards, there are a lot of 1x2s and a lot of 2x1 calls. A lot of old timers on the that use hotspots. I spent 5 years living in Appomattox, so it's out of Lynchburg, and I got to know a lot of older hams who were in HOA communities or in living with relatives or in assisted living facilities who basically were using hotspots to keep their ham radio hobby going. And pretty much after the first week or two, they loved it. It's a way to use ham radio or do ham radio with very limited budget, very limited equipment, not 130 feet antenna that you have to find a room for any place. So hotspots probably become more popular every day. Certainly ham radio outlets sells a lot of them. But I will take any questions you might have. I probably have a bunch. I probably talk fairly fast because I knew I had a bunch of slides tonight, and I wanted to get to the point where people could ask questions. So anyone have one for me?
Hi, JB. This is George. Can you hear me?
I sure can.
Hey, I got a question. You got to download a Linux OS onto the scan disk before you download the PI-Star?
No, PI-Star is a turnkey Linux distribution that includes all the software.
Oh, great. Okay. Thank you.
Yep, that was the big stumbling block before PI-Star came along. You had to basically create a Linux distribution or find one someplace and add all of the software to it. PI-Star eliminated that by taking the normal Raspberry Pi Linux and adding the software that was needed.
Okay, will that Linux work for other applications, or is it just applicable to PI-Star?
Well, it uses the standard Linux Raspbian that Raspberry Pi Foundation distributes. But PI-Star, once you install that image, it's locked down. Okay. It's read-only.
Understand. Thank you.
Right.
So JB, you've made a good case for why this is a nice option for people who have limits, either because of where they live or wherever. So what is the 2-minute in English explanation of the basics that you need in order to do this? Just repeat in the 2-minute version.
You need a hotspot, which you can get from eBay fully baked for 70, 80 bucks max.
Okay.
You need that, and you need a radio. You probably need a digital radio. Doesn't have to be a fancy one. The Radio Odyssey GD77 DMR radios, they sell them occasionally for 75 bucks. You can get a Baofeng if you want, or you can use a commercial Motorola radio that's surplus. Lots of those in the surplus market, but you do need a digital radio. A Yaesu FT70, I think I bought my first FT70 for $125 from Universal Radio. I think they sell a little bit more than that now, but you do need some type of a digital radio today to use a hotspot effectively, and an internet connection.
And a
That's the-
computer.
You don't necessarily, well, you need to connect it to a computer to configure it the first time. After that, it just pretty much runs itself. It is a turnkey computer. No, it's a Raspberry Pi computer, so it's a turnkey computer, but initially you have to have some way to configure the frequency, your Wi-Fi password and things like that. So you do need at least one time connected to a real computer.
But you do need a keyboard and monitor hooked up to your Raspberry Pi.
No.
No? You, what, VNC in?
You do everything from a browser.
Ah, I see. So it's acting as a web host.
Yeah, it does. It has a web server built in.
Okay.
So you can do everything from the web browser. My hotspots are in the closet. I have a IT closet, if you want to call it that. When this house was built, they ran all of the cable TV and everything to the cloak closet in the foyer. And I've sort of taken over that, and my flex radios in there, my hotspots are in there, and I've got them out of the shack. So the only way I have access to my my hotspots without going in and unplugging them and bringing them in here is through the browser.
Right. Okay. So they are on Wi-Fi, and each one has its own little web host, and then you go through your regular computer or your iPhone or something and go to the web address.
Yeah, anything that has a browser on it, you can get to your hotspot.
So you could even do it through your iPhone.
Yeah, you can do it through your iPhone. I've done that many times in the car because I run a hotspot in the car. So if I need to change something, I will pull over, pull it the iPhone, and get into it. A little hard to read and punch the little button sometimes, but you can do it. But that's the way PI-Star works and the hotspot works. Everything is done from the browser.
Nice.
And one of the really neat things is you can put all the pieces in a very small bag and take it on vacation with you.
Exactly.
And use your cell phone as for the internet.
Yeah.
Well, that was going to be my question. I love this little thing. We take it everywhere with us, RVing and in the car and whatever. My internet access is the cell phone. Do you recommend any better way of doing it than that?
I have three choices. This guy here, this sandwich, is a hotspot, a MiFi device, a T-Mobile MiFi device, and a battery. So I stack the three together, connect the battery to the MiFi and to the hotspot, and I have a totally portable internet connected hotspot. Excuse me, in my automobile, I have a device that plugs into the OBDC port, the diagnostic port that they sell at T-Mobile. I got mine off eBay, but it gives you Wi-Fi in the car. So it's nice if you have a tablet or something, you can have connected to the Wi-Fi and download your books from Amazon or whatever. But it works great for the hotspot too, and it doesn't use enough. It doesn't use enough internet that you'll ever notice it on your bill. If you connect yours to your phone, I know you've probably recognized that you can run it all month on your phone, and it won't impact your bill any.
Yeah, that was a point I was going to bring up if you didn't, because a lot of people asked that question. And not only that, for anyone, I do travel with a hotspot, both the OpenSpot 3 and a Zoom spot. And the other thing I find is the activity you may have on your phone, if you try to do other things, that will impact it. But you learn really quickly because people start complaining. Well, they don't complain. They just let you know that you had some packet loss And you can only, you might want to consider dedicating the phone just to that one activity instead of, looking at your favorite Facebook video or whatever else. I'm just being sarcastic there.
I use a separate MiFi device. You know, buy them on eBay for $30 or whatever, and I think I pay $10 a month to T-Mobile for service, and I just use that and not use my cell phone because it just gets complicated when you get phone calls and whatever, and you're trying to use your phone as a hotspot. But you can't do it. You can use the phone or any access to internet that you might happen to have. Some other questions?
JB.
Yes.
Jerry, once you get it set up, do you ever have to update it or anything like that?
As long as it's hooked to the internet, it updates itself every night.
Okay.
The updates that come every night are minor updates. If they have a major change in PI-Star, go from version 3 to version 4, which they did about a year ago, you really do have to download a new image and install it. At least in the previous upgrades, there was no easy way to go from a major version like 2 to 3 and 3 to 4. But that's an enhancement they promise is coming, that you may not have to do that anymore. But as long as you have a backup of your SD card, you really don't have to do it, and you don't usually normally have to upgrade anyway. I know a number of people who are still running version 3 of PI-Star, even though version 4 has been out for a year.
Okay. I am more computer illiterate than literate. I can mess around a little bit with Windows and Mac. Do you need to have Linux or?
No. There are step-by-step instructions on the PI-Star website, and you can Google them, of how to download the image and burn an SD card, and then you just slide it into your Raspberry Pi and turn it on.
Okay.
The first time since it's not connected to your home internet or whatever, the first time you boot it up, that web server will act as basically a hotspot, and there's instructions there too for how to locate it and to log into it without having it on your network. Just have a peer-to-peer, one device to another network to get it configured.
Okay.
And there are ways to configure it without actually doing it through the web, but that's the easy way to do it. But there's lots of websites with step-by-step instructions. It's for those people who need that. And like I say, you don't need to know anything about Linux. That's the beauty of having PI-Star, is you don't need to know any operating system.
Okay, so I could work it with either Windows or a Mac.
Oh yeah,
what I need to do.
I actually have 2 sessions open going here into the Zoom tonight, so I can see what you see. But I'm a Mac guy, but I have a PC over here on my left-hand side that does the exact same thing. The screens look the same. There's no difference. I'm using Firefox on the Mac and Google Chrome on my PC. The screens look the same. Everything looks the same. You would never know that it was running, and even the hotspot was running Linux. There's nothing that tells you that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
JB, on the if you're connecting to it on a peer-to-peer network, I believe, unless something's changed recently, that Windows 10 won't allow you to do a peer-to-peer connection. Is there a workaround for that, or do you have to go get an Android or something to talk to it?
The concept there is you're not. It doesn't matter whether it's Windows or whatever. Your Wi-Fi. You need to connect your Wi-Fi to the PI-Star.
Okay.
And at that point, you're connected to the PI-Star web server, and you can go directly to it and update everything with whatever the name and a network password is for your regular Wi-Fi. Save that, and then you can go back and do everything from your normal Wi-Fi network in the house or wherever. There's just that one time that you have to somehow let PI-Star know what your home network is and what the password is. And as I said before, if you look, there is an explanation of a file that you can create on Windows or on a Mac or anything else and copy to that SD card before you put it into the Raspberry Pi. That will automate that process for you too. You don't even need to do the peer-to-peer connection. It will tell the Raspberry Pi what your home network is. It's just a file you create and copy over.
Good deal. Any other questions tonight? We certainly thank you, JB. This has been one of the most interesting and useful presentations we've had in a while. So I want to thank you for putting this on for us.
Well, I appreciate it. I enjoy doing it. I will end with one slide maybe that I would like to share with you. Go back to the presentation for a second here. And to pick up from where I am. Something you may be interested in. I'm actually working on some cross-mode software with a bunch of hams that basically would allow you to connect any kind of radio, including analog or cell phone or computer browser, and connect to any ham network that you want to. It's mostly a beta type of thing, but not for really the faint of heart. But if you like to mess with software, you can Google it and find out a lot of information about it. You need a healthy knowledge of Linux, or computer networking. It's pretty early stages, but there's some proof of concept versions. If you're interested and you'd like to mess with it a little, there's some proof of concept versions available if you Google, but they're not things that I would use every day. They break a lot and they don't work exactly like they advertise, but the idea is to broaden what the hotspots will do to increase the more cross-moding and to use different devices. Especially analog HT seems to be a particular hotspot or hot topic, rather, for a lot of hams. So I've been playing with it. Like I say, some days it works and some days it doesn't. But I will stop sharing my screen. But I've enjoyed it. I'm available. You can catch my contact information on QRZ. I live in Mechanicsville. If I can help you out or answer a question, don't hesitate. So contact me if you get stumped. Need some advice.
Thanks, JB.
We
No problem.
sure appreciate you talking to us.
Very nice.
All right, well, I'll go ahead and ask for, unless there's any other business for tonight, I'll go ahead and ask for a motion to close the meeting.
I move for the meeting to be closed.
Anybody second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
John.
John.
Thank you.
Thank you, JB.
Good night.
Hey, John, will this be on